Hi everyone, hope you did well for your last NTA Net English exam. So in this video, we will be discussing the questions and provincial answer key of the December 2021 and June 2022 Cycles merged exam, which was conducted on October 13th. Recently, NTA has published the question paper and the answer key, and I hope all of you have gone through it. So in this video, we will be dealing with the questions, and I will be giving you an idea about where this question has came from. I mean, the branch of these questions, and then we will be dealing with the answers. So if we speak about this exam, in a brief, we can say that this exam was extremely different from the previous NTA exams. For example, if you look at the NTA pattern from December 2018 to the last exam, we can find that the questions normally asked are from chronology or from periodicals or non-fiction works. But here they have taken a new turn where the questions are mostly very precise, or we can say the questions are from very unfamiliar areas like India's graphic novels, or the Commonwealth literature, or you can say that there were 30 to 40 questions that were asked directly, like who has written House of Fame or arranged the Shakespearean works in a chronological order. There were questions asked directly, but apart from that 30 to 40 questions, we can find that the remaining questions, they were asked from extremely marginalized areas or extremely cornered areas like Indian graphic writers, or as I said earlier, the different forms of a novel, about the little novels, etc., etc. So here you can find that what can we conclude from such an exam is that if you have to score a good mark for the upcoming NET exams, if they are following the current pattern or the pattern that they insisted on this exam, we have to say that you have to study in detail each and every modules of the syllabus. For example, the first chapter, it is drama, then you have to go and study each and every areas or each and every nationalities of the or national literature of that comes under this drama, because you can expect any questions from any areas from any languages. So that was the pattern that you can find. There were match the following questions where you would be asked regarding the genre of the particular works, then otherwise you would be given the number of the novels, where you have to identify the author with the novels, or the lines of the poems with the poets. So even though the questions sound familiar, the works that they have taken for such a model or for such type of questions were extremely precise. So we have to say not that familiar works, or not the works that belongs to the common area or the common stream. So now let's look at the questions and the answers. And one more thing that I have to say about the exam is that for the students who have studied in depth each and every modules or each and every chapters of the syllabus, it would be an easy exam for you if you're familiar with the questions or the works. But apart from that, if you have covered the mainstream areas or the common areas, then it would be from moderate to hard. So now let's look at the questions and the answers. So as we have discussed, we will be dealing with the questions and answers of NTA December 2021 and June 2022 cycles merged examination, and we will be here in this video, we will be dealing with the shift 1 exam, that is the morning shift examination. So now let's look at the questions and the provincial answer key. So the first question is, which of the following is not true about lyrical ballads? Which of the following is not true about the lyrical ballads? So the question is about lyrical ballads. So it comes under literary criticism because it's written by William Wordsworth. But the question is normally regarding the preface. So let's look at the option. It is a manifesto of romantic poetry. It is a correct statement. So once again, the question is to identify the incorrect statement. It turns English poetry away from the social and intellectual sophistication of the 17th and 18th century poetry. That is also a correct statement, because Romanticism is a reaction against neoclassicism. It takes poetry out of the confines of reason and intellect to the unravished and unspoiled beauties of nature. That is also a correct statement. It is very particular about the form and structure of a poem. We have to say that it is an incorrect statement. It is a very particular about a poem and about the form and structure of the poem, because as I said earlier, Romanticism is a reaction against neoclassicism which focuses on the form and structure of the poem. So obviously it's an incorrect statement because it's like a common language for common man to understand. That is Romanticism. So the correct answer, that is the incorrect statement regarding lyrical ballads, is option D. It is very particular about the form and structure of a poem. Now, let's look at the second question. Identify the one that has not been paired correctly. Identify the one that has not been paired correctly. So here all the four options, these are literary texts. Therefore, it comes. There are theory texts. Therefore, it comes under literary theory. Criticism in Wilderness, it is written by Jeffrey Hartman. Madness and Civilization, it is not written by Roland Barthes. Madness and Civilization, it's a Michel Foucault work. Okay, Madness and Civilization, or the subtitle is A History of the Insanity in the Age of Reason. This is actually a work written by Michel Foucault in the year 1961. So that is not Roland Barthes. So here the correct answer is option B, Madness and Civilization, Roland Barthes. Now let's look at the third question. Which of the following observations are true about Roland Barthes' contribution to literary theory? Once again, the question is regarding Roland Barthes, so it comes under literary theory. So Roland Barthes, he was a structuralist, but later he moved to post-structuralism, and therefore he comes under both the theories. So Roland Barthes, so we have to identify the correct statement regarding Roland Barthes' contribution. He rejected the model of structural analysis of narratives. That is actually an incorrect statement. He rejected the model for structural analysis of narratives. It is an incorrect statement because he has even written an essay titled Introduction to the Structural Analysis of Narratives. So according to him, there are three main types of or description for a narrative, narration, that is function, action and narration. You might be familiar with the three things: function, narration, function, action and narration. So the first statement is incorrect. He perceived meaning as an effect of various interconnections among linguistic codes. He identified the various codes found in the process of structuration. That is also a correct statement. He played a significant role in the development of semiology. That is a correct statement. He questioned the concept of literary criticism as an act of uncovering some hidden truth intended by author. Because you know, it's also a correct statement because you know about death of the author. So apart from A, all the other statements are true. So let's look at the option B, C, D and E only. Yeah, B, C, D and E only comes as option C. So the correct answer is option C, B, C, D and E only. Now let's move on to the fourth question. Who among the following attached himself to the Earl of Nottingham's theatrical company? So the question is regarding Earl of Nottingham's theatrical company. So actually Earl of Nottingham's theatrical company, it was first known as it's actually the other name of Lord Admiral's men. It's also known as Lord Howard's men because it was named after the first Earl of Nottingham. That is why the title Earl of Nottingham's theatrical company. So first Earl of Nottingham, that was Charles Howard. Therefore, it is also known as Lord Howard's men. So the question is, who among the following attached himself to the Earl of Nottingham's theatrical company? So the options are William Shakespeare, Christopher Marlowe, George Peele and Ben Jonson. So here the correct answer is Christopher Marlowe. Okay, Christopher Marlowe. So this Lord Howard's men or Earl of Nottingham's theatrical company, it was also known as Lord Admiral's men, and it is the theatrical company that published most of the plays of, or that performed most of the plays of Christopher Marlowe. So the correct answer is option B, Christopher Marlowe. Now coming to the next question, that is question 5. Given below are two statements. Statement 1, Hannah Arendt's defactualization is very close to the concept of post-truth. Statement 2, post-truth relies on absolute lies. So, in the light of the above statements, choose the most appropriate answer from the options given below. So, the question is regarding Hannah Arendt. So, Hannah Arendt, she is actually a political philosopher, a author. You can say she was an Holocaust survivor. So, she has written an essay titled "Lying in Politics." Okay, "Lying in Politics." It is a 1971 essay titled "Lying in Politics." So, here if you look at the statements, we can say that post-truth politics, it is a what we can say, it's a post culture where true, false, honesty or lying, it has become a focal concern of the public life, and therefore it is viewed by the popular commentators, or we can say like the academic researchers alike, because it's having a very important casual role in how politics operates at a particular point in history. So we have to say that statement 1 is correct, that is Hannah Arendt's defactualization, it is very close to the concept of post-truth, but post-truth relies on absolute lies. It is an incorrect statement. So, the correct answer is option C. Statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. Okay, statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. So, now let's look at the next question, that is question 6. A man can be destroyed but not defeated. Which of the following text glorifies this as its predominant theme? A man can be destroyed but not defeated. So, we know that the correct answer is The Old Man and the Sea. So, The Old Man and the Sea, it is an answer. I mean, it's a novella written by Ernest Hemingway in 1952. So, this question comes under American literature. This question comes under American literature. So, here we know it tells a story of Santiago. Santiago is an aging Cuban fisherman, and he has not even got, he never got a fish for the last 84 days. So everyone thought of him to be a lost soul, everyone thought of him to be a bad lucky person, and therefore it tells a story about how this man struggles with a giant marlin and how he brought back the skeleton of the fish. So his his respect has been restored. So the question is, a man can be destroyed but not defeated. It's a correct statement where you could explain, or we could explain the character Santiago of The Old Man and the Sea. So the next question that we are dealing is question number 7. But we have to say that question number 7, it's actually a drop one. Because there are more than, the options given for this question is not correct. So, NTA has considered this question as a drop. So, identify the correct combination among the following: Demon's novel, Landlady novella, The Crocodile short story, A Writer's Diary essay, Marv Stewart translation. So, here you can find that Demons, it is a novel, Landlady, it's a novella. So, there are many answers that comes as an option here. So, this question is treated to be this question is treated to be a drop question. Again, we can find another drop question here, that is question number 8. Who said there can be, and there ought to be the difference between the language of prose and metrical composition? So, at first the answer was S.T. Coleridge, but later they consider this question as a drop, because actually this line without a note was said by William Wordsworth. So, that is there ought not to be a difference between language and prose and metrical composition. If that was the question, then the answer was William Wordsworth. So, this question is also considered as a drop as per the final answer key of NTA Net English. So, here you can find that 7 and 8 questions can be regarded as a drop. So, the marks would be given to all. Now, let's look at the next question. Who is the author of the essay Three Women's Text and a Critic of Imperialism? So, this is the essay Three Women's Text and a Critic of Imperialism. Three Women's Text and a Critic of Imperialism. This is actually an essay written by Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. So, this comes under post-colonialism, literary theory, post-colonialism. Gayatri Spivak, she has written the essay titled Three Women's Text and a Critic of Imperialism, 1985. So, if, you might be familiar with this text because This is actually an analysis of the writings of women writers like Emily Bronte's Jane Eyre, then White's Sargasso by Jean Rhys, and then we have this Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So this is an analysis of these three works. So this essay is written by Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. The next question is, it is significant that the productive capacities of this third space have a colonial or post-colonial provenance. The above lines have been written by. Okay, it is significant that the productive capacities of this third space. So with this very term third space, you can almost, guess the answer, because third space is normally associated with Homi K. Bhabha. So here Homi K. Bhabha has said these lines, or has written these lines in his essay Cultural Diversity and Cultural Differences. So these lines are written by Homi K. Bhabha. So that is also one important question. So I think even if you are not that familiar with the questions, you can guess the answer with this title third space. So the correct answer is option D, that is Homi K. Bhabha. Now let's look at the next question. Identify the correct combinations. Identify the correct combinations. So we have Dadaism and Tristan Tzara. That is a correct combination, because Dadaism, it's one of the major artists of Dadaism is Tristan Tzara. Then we have super realism and we have Guillain Apollinaire. That is also a correct combination. Then we have surrealism and Filippo Marinetti. That is an incorrect combination, because Filippo Marinetti, he is a founder of the futurist movement, not surrealism. He is associated with futurist movement. And then we have here the options are shifted, because futurism, it's not Andre Breton. Futurism, it is Filippo Marinetti, and surrealism, it is Andre Breton, because Andre Breton is the co-founder of surrealism. So these are the incorrect statement. Then we have nihilism, Ivan Sergeyevich Turgenev. That is also a correct combination. So we have to say that A, B and E are correct combination. A, B and E, yeah, that comes as option B. So A, B and E, that is the correct answer. Now let's look at the next question, that is question number 12. Consumerism is a major theme in which of the following works? Consumerism is a major theme in which of the following works? So here it comes consumerism. So it normally falls under literary theory, but here you can find that even though consumerism is a literary theory concept, the options given here are dramas. Okay, option here given here are the different plays, especially of modern age plays, but of a mixed genre, like mixed nationality, like there is from British literature, there is from American literature. Anyway, so here the question is from, we can say the question is from the module drama. So here the question is, which among the following works has the theme of consumerism? So we have loyalties, no, loyalties, the theme is not consumerism. Then we have Saint Joan of Stockyards. Saint Joan of Stockyards, that is actually a play written on the basis of consumerism. It's actually a play written by Bertolt Brecht, and it deals with the topic of Chicago stockyards. So Saint Joan of Stockyards, it deals with the theme consumerism. Then we have Death of a Salesman. Death of a Salesman is also a play written by Arthur Miller, based on the life of Willy Loman and about his life as a salesman. So this also falls under the theme of consumerism. So then we have Candida, no. Waiting for Godot also does not cover the themes of consumerism. So here the correct answer is option B and C, Saint Joan of Stockyards and Death of a Salesman. So the correct answer is option C, that is B and C only, Saint Joan of Stockyards and Death of a Salesman. So Saint Joan of Stockyards, you might be familiar with this work. It's a work written by Bertolt Brecht, a modern adaptation of the story of Saint Joan. Now let's look at the next question, question number 13. J.H. Miller, one of the leading exponents of deconstruction, makes a deconstructionist reading of which of the following poems of P.B. Shelley? So this question comes under literary theory, and that too under post-structuralism or deconstruction. Okay, so here the question is about J. Hillis Miller, who is actually a leading deconstructional writer. So here he makes a deconstructionist reading of which of the following poems by P.B. Shelley. So the correct answer is A Triumph of Life. We can say that J. Hillis Miller, he touches on this triumph of life in his essay The Critic as a Host. So The Critic as a Host is an essay written by J.H. Miller in which he speaks about Shelley's The Triumph of Life. So he argues that the poem, that is The Triumph of Life, it contains within itself a jostlingly, what we can say, irreconcilably with one another, both logocentric metaphysics and also nihilism. So The Triumph of Life by Shelley, as per Miller, is a perfect example of an integration of logocentric metaphysics and also nihilism. So it is J. Miller who takes the poem The Triumph of Life in his work The Critic as a Whole. So this falls under literary theory deconstruction. Now let's look at the next question, question number 14. Should poets bicycle pump the human heart or squash it flat? Man's love is of man's life a thing apart. Girls aren't like that, the above lines are written by. Should poets bicycle pump the human heart or squash it flat? Man's love is of man's life a thing apart. Girls aren't like that, the above lines are written by. The options are Philip Larkin, Kingsley Amis, Donald Davy, and John Wayne. Okay, so the correct answer is Kingsley Amis. It is a line written by Kingsley Amis in his work A Bookshop Idyll. Okay, Bookshop Idyll by Kingsley Amis in 1956. So this comes under postmodernism, British literature, postmodernism, or if we speak about the modules, this is actually a poem written by Kingsley Amis. Now moving on to the next question. We have identify the correct ones among the following. Identify the correct ones among the following. Arun Kolatkar uses colloquial speech in his poem. So here the entire lines is, the entire statements given here are related to Arun Kolatkar, and we know about Arun Kolatkar, he actually belongs to Indian English literature, therefore Arun Kolatkar. So here let's look. Arun Kolatkar, you have to identify the correct ones. Okay, so you have to identify the correct statement. Arun Kolatkar uses colloquial speech in his poems. That's a correct statement. He was just like Nizam Ezekiel, who wanted to bring Indian English into poetry. Kolatkar envisions abstract qualities to paint a picture of life of his own kind. That is also a correct statement regarding him. The poem Boat Ride by Kolatkar talks about a ride in the ganges. That is an incorrect statement because the boat ride, it is a poem written by Kolatkar, but it is normally not a ride in gangs, but because it's like a pleasure trip taken by a number of people who wanted to have a taste of sailing upon the sea. Therefore, it's not the river Ganga, but it is like a sea where you would get a boat from one shore and you will land on the other. You will depart. You will arrive on another shore. So it's nothing about Ganga. So option C is incorrect. Private poems in public garden. It is composed by Dilip Chitre. That is also a correct statement. And then we have In Ethiopia is a poem on Africa by Arun Kolatkar. That is also an incorrect statement. So the incorrect statements are C and E. So the correct statements are A, B and D. So that comes as option C. A, B and D only. A, B and D only. Now let's look at the next question, that is question number 16. Okay, so question 16. Given below are two statements. Statement 1, the teaching of non-native literature to the students of English language teaching is arid. Statement 2, the negative responses in ELT classroom can create an interesting classroom situation. So here you can say that this actually comes under language pedagogy where the branch is ELT. So the correct option we can say is Statement 1 is correct, but here if you look at these statements, you can find that statement 1 is correct and also statement 2 is correct. So that is option A. Both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. So 16, it comes under language and pedagogy as the branch ELT, and the correct answer is option A. Both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. Then we have question 17. When was Haruki Murakami's Men Without Women published? When was Haruki Murakami's Men Without Women published? When was Haruki Murakami's Men Without Women published? So, as I said in the introduction, this is actually a question no one would ever expect, because it is like a Japanese author. Haruki Murakami is a Japanese author, and Men Without Women, it is a short story collection. So it was published in the year 2014 and it was translated to English in the year 2017. Okay, so you have to remember that it was Haruki Murakami's Men Without Women. It was published in the year 2014 and it was translated to English in the year 2017. So Haruki Murakami is a Japanese author. Men Without Women is a collection of short stories. So with NTA's new syllabus, you have to focus more on the different short stories of different languages. So the next question is question 18. So this question is also a changed question because it has got two answers. So the question is the ancient and modern quarrel. The ancient and modern quarrel in Western literary criticism appeals during. So that is the question, and we have four options: 100 BC, 5th century, 6th century and 20th century. So we have to say that the ancient and the moral quarrels, so the quarrels of the ancients and the moderns, they began as a literary, or we can say as an artistic debate that heated up in the 16th and the 17th century. Okay, that heated up in the 16th and the 17th century, because here as a consequence, or we can say with the coming of Renaissance, there was a great interest in the studying of classical literature, and that actually made a debate where some people supported the classical literature while some people supported the modern literature, and we can find these works in the critics of that time. But here the thing is that though it happened there during the Renaissance, it was there in the 16th century, the thing is that this debate, it continued for different centuries and even it lasted in the 20th century. So here NTA has given two answers to this question: 16th century and 20th century. So there are two answers, 16th century and 20th century, because here in 20th century, this character called, this personality called Leo Strauss, he revived this quarrel, siding with the ancients in contrast to the modernist positions advocated by his friend Alexander. So even this debate, it happened from 16th century to the 20th century, and in all these centuries there were people who supported the ancients over the moderns, or supported the moderns over the ancients. So we have to say that there are two answers to this question: 16th century and 20th century, that is C and D. Now let's look at the next question. Which of the following concepts are associated with Bardharani's theory of Sparta? Which of the following concepts are associated with Bardhari's theory of Sparta? So Bardhari's theory of Sparta, it comes under Indian aesthetics. Okay, it comes under Indian aesthetics, which is actually another part of, or a deviation of Indian English literature. So the options are Rasa, Alankara, Dwani, Vakroti and Shabda Brahman. So here we can find that Bardhari is an Hindu linguistic philosopher, and this concept of Sparta, it is an important concept in Indian grammatical tradition of Vyakarna, especially relating to the problems of speech production. So here you have to identify the concepts that are related to speech production, or like how the mind orders linguistic units into the coherent discourse and meaning. So we have Rasa, Alamkara, Dwani. So Dwani is actually a concept related to sound production, and Vakrokti, and then we have Shabda Brahman. Shabda Brahman is also a concept associated with sound production. So we can say that the following concepts associated with Bhartrhari's theory of Spota is Dwani and Shabda Brahman, that is C and E only, option B. So the correct answer is option B, C and E only. So the next question is question 20. Besides being a playwright, who among the following has translated Homer? Besides being a playwright, who among the following has translated Homer? So this is actually a question from British literature, Jacobean age, regarding the translations and drama. So here we know that the correct answer is George Chapman. The correct answer is George Chapman, because from 1598 he published the translation of Iliad in installments, and later in 1660 he completed Iliad and Odyssey, and both of them appeared as the whole works of Homer. The whole works of Homer. And later Alexander Pope, he also translated Homer, and up to Alexander Pope this was regarded to be the best translations of Homer. So the correct answer is option D, George Chapman. So now let's look on the next question, that is question 21. Given below are two statements. Statement 1, he who discovers no God whatever, how shall he discover heroes, the visible temples of God, is a statement by Thomas Carlyle. So Thomas Carlyle, we know he's a Scottish essayist, a historian and a philosopher. He belongs to the Victorian age of British literature. And statement 2 is, it is not that men are ill-fed, but that they have no pleasure in the work by which they make their bread, and therefore look to wealth as the only means of pleasure. It is a statement by John Ruskin. John Ruskin is also an English writer, philosopher, art critic, etc. of the Victorian era. So here we have to say that both of their statements are true. Thomas Carlyle has given a statement like this, and also John Ruskin, he also made a statement. So both statement 1 and statement 2 are true. So here this belongs to British literature, Victorian age, because both Thomas Carlyle and John Ruskin, both of them belong to the Victorian period of British literature. Now let's look at the next question, that is question 22. Which of the following articles of Indian Constitution made the provision for use of English alongside Hindi for official purpose for 15 years. So we know this comes as a new module. New module in the sense, in 2018, NTA has revised the syllabus and added a module called English in India. So this comes under English in India, where you have to study the evolution, about the history, evolution, and also the future of English. So this is a question regarding Indian Constitution, which comes under English in India, and the correct answer is Article 343. Article 343, it made use of the provision for the use of English alongside Hindi for official purposes for 15 years. And now we have the next question. Let's move on to the next question. The heroic couplet is a pair of. Okay, so this comes under poetry, and you can say British poetry, but it comes under the module poetry. The heroic couplet is a pair of. The options are 12 syllable lines that rhyme, 10 syllable lines that rhyme, 8 syllable lines that do not rhyme, 8 syllable lines that rhyme. So here we know about the heroic couplet. Heroic couplet, it was brought into English by Chaucer, who used this in the work The Legend of the Good Women, the Canterbury Tales, etc. And then it was perfected, or it was we can say it was perfected by Dryden and Alexander Pope. So the heroic couplet, it's normally in iambic pentameter, that is 10 syllable lines that rhyme. 10 syllable lines that rhyme. So the heroic couplet is a pair of 10 syllable lines that rhyme. So the next question is a match the following question, which is also regarded to be a drop question by NTA Net final answer key. The thing is that here the question is regarding the chronological order, or regarding the year of performance or publication of Shakespearean plays like Hamlet, Macbeth, Julius Caesar and Othello. But Shakespeare, his plays and Shakespeare's the year of publications. These are all, I mean, this is actually a question of debate all through the centuries. So here we cannot have a final answer for Shakespearean plays. So here again, this question is regarded to be a dead, or this question is dropped from the question. So anyone who has written any of the options for these questions would be given the marks. So that is about question number 24, which is regarded to be a drop by NTA Net. Let's move on to the next question. Philip Sidney's Arcadia was influenced by. Philip Sidney's Arcadia. Again, this is a question from British Literature Elizabethan Age about poems. So, Philip Sidney's Arcadia, it was influenced by. Options are the Spanish romance of Montemayor, the Italian paintings of Veronese, the Arthurian legends, and the metaphysical poetry. So, the correct answer is the Spanish romance of Montemayor. So, the Spanish Montemayor. Montemayor is actually a Portuguese author, that is Jorge de Montemayor, and he has written a work titled as the Seven Books of Diana, that is, which is written in Spanish. The Seven Books of Diana, that is the Spanish romance of Montemayor. Even even William Shakespeare was a great follower of Montemayor. Anyway, Philip Sidney's Arcadia was influenced by the Spanish romance of Montemayor. Now let's look at the next question, that is question 26. Match list 1 with list 2. Okay, match list 1 with list 2. So these all are actually the lines from modern age about the poets. I mean modern age poets line. So we have faces along the bar or cling to their average day. Faces along the bar clings to their average day. So this is actually taken from the poem September 1, 1939. September 1st, 1939, which is actually a poem written by W.H. Auden. So we have A4. Faces along the bar or cling to their average day. It's written by W.H. Auden. The poem is September 1, 1939. The awful daring of moment's surrender. The awful daring of moment's surrender. These are actually the lines taken from Wasteland. So obviously the answer is T.S. Eliot. Then we have bent double like all beggars under sacks. Bent double like old beggars under sacks. This is actually a poem by Wilfred Owen. That is dulls et decorum est. Dulls et decorum est. And finally we have I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness. This is actually a poem written by Allen Ginsberg, which is titled as Howl. Okay, so if you look at the options, we have A, W.H. Auden, A4, B2, C 1 and D3. So the correct option is A4, B2, C1 and D3, that is option A. So this comes under poetry, especially modern age poetry. Now let's look at the next question. Match list 1 with list 2. List 1, Zalim Ali. So Jim Corbett, Kailash Shankala, M. Krishnan. Wild Beauty, The Fall of a Sparrow, Night and Days, My Book of Indian Wildlife, My Indian. So if you look at the list, if you look at list 2, you will get an idea that all these are autobiographies. All these are Indian autobiographies by different writers. So you have to identify the correct author. So if you look at the autobiographies, we have Salim Ali. Salim Ali is the author of The Fall of a Sparrow. So A2. Then we have Jim Corbett, who has written My India, Meri Hindustan, My India. Then we have Kailash Shankala, who has written Wild Beauty, and M. Krishna, who has written The Night and Days, My Book of Indian Wildlife. So if you look at the options, we have A2, B4, C1 and D3. So that is option A. A2, B4, C1 and D3. So next is question number 28, which is another drop question of this morning shift. So here we can find that in the morning shift there were 16 to 18 questions that had changes, and out of that almost 10 questions were considered to be considered to be a drop. So one among them is question number 28. Find the correct explanation of the term aporia. So we know aporia is a term associated with literary theory, and that too with deconstruction or post-structuralism. So here you can find that there are more than one options that you can associate with aporia. So it denotes a speaker's or character's deliberation on an irresolvable question. That is also a correct explanation of aporia. It is an address to something inanimate. No, it's applied to a work of art fraught with inherent tension. It refers to a form of denial of existence. So since there is a confusion with the options, this question is considered to be a drop. So the next question is question 29. Identify the novels that were published in the 1980s and the 1990s. So you have to identify the works that were published during the 1980s and the 1990s. So we have Red Earth and Pouring Rain. So Red Earth and Pouring Rain, it is a work written by Vikram Chandra, which was published in the year 1995. So this is actually, these all, if you look at the options, you will get an idea that all these are Indian English works. So this comes under Indian English literature. Then we have the Circle of Reason, written by Amitav Ghosh in the year 1986. So Red Earth and Pouring Rain, it was published in the 1995. The Circle of Reason, published in 1986. Then we have The Ghost of Vasu Master. The Ghost of Vasu Master is actually a work written by Geeta Hariharan in the year 1994. Then we have Miguel Street. Miguel Street is actually written by V.S. Naipaul, and that too in the year 1959. So this does not comes under the category of 1980s and 1990s. Similarly, The Sage of Babylon, that is written by Farooq Dondi in the year 1978. So these also does not comes under 1980s and 1990s. So the correct answer is option A, B and C. Option A, B and C. So that comes as option B. A, B and Z only. A, B and C only. Now let's look at the next question, that is question number 30. Given below are two statements. One is labeled as assertion A and the other is labeled as reason R. Assertion A and reason. Assertion. Insofar as we are taught how to read, what we engage are no text but paradigms. Reason is we appropriate meanings from a text according to what we need or desire, or in other words, according to the critical assumptions of the predepositions that bring to it. Actually, if you look at it, we get an idea that this is actually a statement, or this proposal is actually made by this critic or writer called Annette Colonnodi. Okay, it's actually a statement given by Annette Colonnodi. And if we look at the assertion, we know that as long as the readers consider a text as a paradigm rather than simply text, such as such a kind of textual interpretation will be possible. So assertion is right. Assertion is right, and the reason is that if we appropriate meaning from a text, like about what we need or desire, in other words, then according to the critical assumptions of predepositions that we bring to it. So we have to say that both A and R are correct, and R is the correct explanation of A. Both A and R are correct, and R is the correct explanation of A. And now let's look at the next question, that is question 31. Identify the poems termed as pastoral elegies. Identify the terms, that is elegy written in lamenting of someone's death, and pastoral in the sense pastoral feelings. Pastoral topics or pastoral themes. So here you have to identify the poems that are termed as pastoral elegies. Okay, so Lycidas we know it is a pastoral elegy. Then we have In Memory of W.B. Yeats. In Memory of W.B. Yeats, it is actually a elegy written by W.H. Auden, but here we cannot see any artificial or any labored in the grief of the poem as in the style of a confessional pastoral elegy. So In Memory of W.B. Yeats, it is not a pastoral elegy. And then we have Adonais Adonis is also, Adonis is also a pastoral elegy. Adonis is a pastoral elegy. Then we have Tyrus. Tyrus is also a pastoral elegy. Then In Memoriam. In Memoriam is not a pastoral elegy. It's a work written by Lord Tennyson. But as I said earlier, it does not have any artificial or labored in the grief of poem as in the sort of conventional poem. So, In Memory of W.B. Yeats and In Memoriam, these cannot be regarded as pastoral elegies, though they are elegies. So, the correct answer is option A, C and D. That is option C, A, C and D. Now let's look at the next question, that is question 32. Who among the following in the article fleshy school of poetry attacked pre-Raphaelites, especially D.G. Rossetti? So this is a question from the non-fiction area, that is fleshy schools of poetry. So we know there is a new syllabus called non-fiction and short stories. So this is actually a question from this area. Fleshy school of poetry. Okay, fleshy school of poetry. So here the correct answer is Robert Buchanan. Robert Buchanan, because Robert Buchanan, he accused the writers like D.G. Rossetti or William Morris or Swinburne for immorality, and that too in the article The Fleshy School of Poetry. So the correct answer is option C, Robert Buchanan. So the next question is again a match the following. So in this NTA exam, we can find lots and lots of match the following questions. So match list 1 with list 2. Match list 1 with list 2. So this actually comes under literary theory, and if you look much precisely, you will get an idea that this comes from the title, this comes from the branch of literary theory, that is Pure Studies. Okay, so let's look at the option. So, Gender and Nation, it's a work written by Nira Ewell Davis. Greek Homosexuality by K.J. Dover. The Subject of Tragedy by Catherine Belsey. The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. So, if you look at the options, we will get that A comes under 4, B matches with 2, C matches with 1 and D matches with 3. So the correct answer is option D. Okay, so the correct answer to our question 33 is option D. Now let's look at the next question. Which of the following theorists identifies metonymy and metaphor as two fundamental structures of language? So metonymy and metaphor, both of them are actually the term that was popularized by Roman Jakobson. Both of the terms are popularized by Roman Jakobson. So we know about Roman Jakobson. He comes under literary theory, and that too under the branch formalism. So metaphor, metonymy, Roman Jakobson. So these are all directly given in our text. So these are all examples of the direct questions that are asked in this particular exam. So the correct answer is option D. Now, Under the Net 1954 is written by Under the Net 1954 is written by, the correct answer is Iris Mudroch. So we know about Iris Mudroch. So Iris Mudroch has written the novel Under the Net in the year 1954. So this comes under British literature, postmodern age, or if you look at the branch, it comes under the branch of novels and under postmodern age novel. Next is question number 36. So again, this is a question that's asked from literary theory, and since this question is regarding Roland Barthes, we can categorize it as structuralism or post-structuralism, because Roland Barthes at the beginning of his career, he was a structuralist and later he turned to a post-structuralism. So let's look at the question. Question number 36. Given below are two statements. One is labeled as assertion and the other one is reason. So again, the question is regarding Roland Barthes. So assertion. Roland Barthes describes two basic categories of text as the readerly and the writerly. So we know that Roland Barthes, he divided the text into two, readerly text and writerly text. So readerly text, it's actually for a horizontal reading, while writerly text is for a vertical reading, where we have to find the multiple meanings of this particular text. So the assertion, it is right. Then we have the reason. Language is the window through which one sees the world. In the light, okay, language is the window through which one sees the world. So again here we can find that though the reason is correct, it's nothing to do with the assertion, or we have to say that the reason is not the correct explanation of assertion. So both A and R are correct, but R is not the correct explanation of A. So the correct answer to question number 36 is option B. Both A and R are correct, but R is not the correct explanation of A. So that is question 36. So now let's look at the next question. Find out the correct sequence of the publications of the following books. Find out the correct publications of the, so you have to arrange the works in the chronological order. So this comes under, so all the questions, these are the works, all the options, these are the works of V.S. Naipaul. So it comes under post-colonial literature, that is British diaspora. If you look at the works, we have to say these are mostly novels, comes under post-colonial literature. So India, an area of darkness, and if you, we have 4 works given here. In An Area of Darkness, India, a Wounded Civilization, India, A Million Mutinies Now, and The House of Mr. Biswas. So if you look in much detail, you will, let's arrange them in the chronological order. So the first published work is The House of Mr. Biswas. So that is the first published work, The House of Mr. Biswas. So if you look at it, The House of Mr. Biswas, it was published in the year 1961. So we have 2 works that come, 2 options that comes with the first work, A House of Mr. Biswas. It was published in the year 1961. And then we have An Area of Darkness, that is a second one. So we get the option, correct option right from here, because An Area of Darkness, it was published in the year 1964. Followed by India, A Wounded Civilization, which was published in the year 1977, and India, A Million Mutinies Now, published in the year 1990. So the correct answer is option C. So this comes under post-colonial literature, British diaspora, and that too of novels. What is meant by corporate author in research? So this comes under research methodology, and the correct answer, the corporate author means a work produced by an institution, an association, or a government agency. A work produced by an institution, an association, or a government agency. That is what is called as corporate author. So now let's look at the next question, that is question 39. Which of the following denote the 3 phases of literary feminism according to Elaine Showalter? So this comes under literary theory, and that also with feminism, literary theory, feminism. So you have to identify the 3 phases of literary feminism according to Elaine Showalter. So we know, if we have studied the works of Elaine Showalter, she clearly mentioned that the first phase is the feminine phase. Okay, so we have the feminine phase. Feminine phase means when the women writers, they imitate the men writers. They do not want to be prejudiced on the basis of gender, so they try to imitate the men writers. The second stage is the feminist stage, or the feminist phase, where women advocates for the minority rights and also the protest. And then we have the female phase, where you can say now the focus is on women's text as opposing to the men's text. Okay, because there is men's text, that means we can say that the focus is now on the women's text as opposed to merely uncovering the misogyny in the men's text. So that is the feminine, feminist, and female. So A, D, and E only. Okay, A, D, and E only, that comes as option B. So the correct answer is option B. Now let's look at the next question. Which of the following is not a part of Amitav Ghosh Ibis trilogy? Which of the following is not a part of Amitav Ghosh Ibis trilogy? Again, this comes under Indian English. So in this exam, you can find that many of the questions are from Indian English literature. But with that, we cannot predict that the next year they would be asking same from Indian English. But as a conclusion, we can say that there is a great importance to Indian English literature. So Ibis trilogy, so all the options given here are written by Amitav Ghosh, but apart from the Calcutta Chromosome, the rest of the 3 works constitute to form the Ibis trilogy. Sea of Poppies, River of Smoke, and Flood of Fire. Sea of Poppies, River of Smoke, and Flood of Fire. So the correct answer is option D. So Ibis trilogy, it is a historic fiction. So these are the novels: Sea of Poppies 2008, River of Smoke 2011 and Flood of Fire 2015. So now let's look at the next question. Which among the following are true about Harold Pinter? So again, there is a question from Harold Pinter. In the previous years, we can find 2 or 3 questions from a single exam from Harold Pinter. So Harold Pinter, he is the most important playwright of the postmodern age of British literature. So again, this question is from Harold Pinter. So the question is, you have to identify the correct statement. Harold Pinter was born in the year 1925. Harold Pinter was born in the year 1925. That is actually an incorrect statement because Harold Pinter, he was actually born in the year 1930. He was born in the year 1930 and he died in the year 2008. So the first statement is incorrect. He was influenced by Samuel Beckett and he was influenced by Samuel Beckett and the theatre of absurd. That is a correct statement because you can find absurdity in the works of Harold Pinter. Then B is a correct statement. Then we have The Caretaker and Alchemist are his famous plays. No, because Caretaker is a play written by Harold Pinter, but Alchemist is actually a play written by Ben Jonson. Okay, Alchemist is a play written by Ben Jonson. Then Stanley is a character in Birthday Party. That is correct answer. The correct statement. Betrayal is a story of a married couple. That is also a correct statement. So we can say B, D and E. B, D and E are correct statements. So B, D and E comes as option B. So the correct answer to question 41 is option B. Now let's look at the next question. Who is the author of the poem House of Form? This is the most direct question that you can ever expect from NTA NET exam. So the House of the Fame, it is written by Geoffrey Chaucer. So it comes under British literature, Chaucer poetry. The next question is, choose the right chronological sequence of the publication of the following novels by Margaret Atwood. So here all the works are written by Margaret Atwood and you have to. So you know about Margaret Atwood, she is really important from a net point of view because she has won Booker Prize twice. And if you look at you have to arrange the works of her in a chronological order. So if you look at the works, we get the first, if you look at the order, the first work is Lady Oracle because it was published in the year 1976. Lady Oracle, 1976. And then we have The Blind Assassin, which was published in the year 2000. Blind Assassin was published in the year 2000. Then we have The Handmaid's Tale. Handmaid's Tale was actually published before The Blind Assassin, that is in the year 1985. And then we have Alias Grace in the chronological order, published in the year 1996. Then The Testaments, published in the year 2019. This was actually the joint winner of 2019 Booker Prize. So if you look at the options, we have Lady Oracle, the first one. Then we have The Handmaid's Tale. Then we have Alias Grace, and then Blind Assassin, and finally The Testaments. Okay, so we have option B, A, C, E, B and D. So the correct answer is option B. Now let's look at the next question. Again, this is a question from Indian English literature. So, Subramani's Fantasy Eaters, 1988 is a dash. So, the Fantasy Eaters written by Subramani, this was actually published in the year 1988. This is a collection of 9 short stories and a novella. 9 short stories and a novella. So, the correct answer is option B, collection of short stories. So, the stories, they are set in the Indian community in Fiji. So that is option 40, question 44, option B. Now we have question number 45. Kimberly Crenshaw's term intersectionality is widely used for. So this term comes under literary theory, feminism. So it does not comes under academic deterioration. That is an incorrect statement. Racial justice, yeah, it comes under intersectionality. It comes under racial justice. And then we have peace formation. That is also not, I mean, incorrect statement. Then we have complex construction of power. That is a correct statement. And identity politics, that is also correct. So B, D and E are correct. So that is option A. B, D and E are correct. So that is about question 45. So let's look at the next question, that is question 46. Canadian Multiculturalism Act. Canadian Multiculturalism Act. So this comes under post-colonial literature and that too under the Canadian literature. So the question is, Canadian Multiculturalism Act, it was passed in the year. So Canadian Multiculturalism Act, that is actually a law of Canada which was passed in the year 1988. Option D, that is 1988, in order to enhance or in order to preserve the cultural diversity of Canada. Or we can say multiculturalism in Canada. So the correct answer is option D, 1988. So the next question is question number 47. This is also regarded to be a drop question by the final answer key of NTA NET. So here the question is, identify the correct combination among the following. So sponde, it consists of 3 stressed syllables. Pyrrhic, it consists of 2 unstressed syllables. Amphiamazer, it's a metrical foot of 3 syllables. Choriamphus, it's a foot of words consisting of 2 stressed syllables enclosing 2 unstressed syllables. And trochaic, it has a stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. So in the options like trochaic, you can find that it's not clearly given. So the question has got its mistake. Some of them are rightly paired, some of them are incorrectly paired, but for some pairs you can find that the explanation is not that genuine, or it's not that descriptive. So this question is also regarded to be a drop question. So let's move on to the next question, that is question number 48. Which writer does not belong to the angry young men movement? Which writer does not belong to the angry young man movement? And according to the final answer key of NTA NET exam, you can find two answers for this question. So we know that angry young man movement, it actually belongs to the postmodern age movement. Okay, postmodern age movement. And we know that John Osborne, Kingsley Amis, both of them, they belong to this category. They are examples of angry young man movement. But Seamus Heaney and Philip Larkin, they has got nothing to do with angry young man movement. So the correct answer to this question is option C and D. So if you have written either C or D as an option, then you would be given a mark. So that is question 48, option C and D. So the next question is Alfred Lord Tennyson. So Alfred Lord Tennyson in the following lines, "Yet I doubt not through the ages one increasing purpose runs, and the thoughts of men are widened with the process of the sun." So this is actually a line from Locksley Hall written by Alfred Lord Tennyson, and you have to identify what he reflects on this sentence. So the correct option is option B, reflects upon evolutionary faith. Reflects upon evolutionary faith, because this comes under British literature, that is poetry, British literature, Victorian age. So now let's look at the next question, that is question number 50. Identify the combination that belongs to the genre of science fiction or speculative fiction. So this is what I said in the introduction. You can ask questions, you have been asked questions from the genre, but none of these works except the Satanic Verses belongs to the the common area or the most familiar areas. Anyway, let's have a look. So Vandana Singh, The Woman Who Thought She Was Planet, that actually belongs to a science fiction novel. It's a science fiction. Then we have Tehimina Durai's Blasphemy. That is not a science fiction novel. It's like a tragic or a shocking story of a beautiful how she gets married to a person, and about the how corrupted and brutalized he is. So this it's not a science fiction. Again, Salman Rushdie's Satanic Verses, that is also not a science fiction because it comes under magic realism. Okay, since it comes under magic realism, that is also not a science fiction novel. So the next question is question number 51. So who among the following is not a recipient for the Nobel Prize for Literature? So here you have to give a special attention to the question. It is not simply Nobel Prize, but it is Nobel Prize for Literature. And NTA, the final answer key, it has given two answers for it. That is option C and D. That is W.H. Auden and Madame Curie. Because Madame Curie, she has won the Nobel Prize, but not for literature, but for physics and for chemistry. And also W.H. Auden, he has never won the Nobel Prize. Okay, so here, who among the following is not a recipient of the Nobel Prize for Literature? We have option C, W.H. Auden, and option D, Madame Curie. So if you have written either of the two options, you will get the mark for this question. So who among the following is not a recipient for Nobel Prize for Literature? W.H. Auden and Madame Curie. Now let's look at the next question, that is question number 52. The Writer and the World by V.S. Naipaul. So this is again another question which has got two options, because The Writer and the World, the subtitle is Essays. It is a 2002 collection of essays and reportage by written by V.S. Naipaul, and you can find that this is actually a collection of essays spanning over 50 years of the 50-year career of V.S. Naipaul. So here you can find that Writer and World, therefore it is a collection of essays, and since it's a collection of essay, it also belongs to the genre of non-fiction. So the correct answer to this question is option C and D, collection of essays and non-fiction. Okay, so that is The Writer and the World by V.S. Naipaul. So now let's look at the next question, question number 53. The Deserted Village by Oliver Goldsmith. So we know that The Deserted Village, it is a poem written by Oliver Goldsmith. So Oliver Goldsmith, we know that he is a Restoration Age writer of British literature. So this question again comes under British literature, and that too under Restoration Age. So the Deserted Village, it is a poem written by Oliver Goldsmith, published in the year 1770. It's published in the year 1770, and here you have to find the statement that reflects the deserted village. So the deserted village, it's a work of social commentary. It condemns rural depopulation, and you can find that also it condemns the pursuit of excessive wealth. So let's look at the option. The critics the rural institution, voices revolt of the individual man against institution, reflects upon different views on the human soul, advocates urbanism over rural backwardness. So you can find that the correct answer is option B, voices revolt of the individual man against institution. So now let's look at the next question, that is question number 54. Question number 54. So, which of the collections of poems are not written by Meena Alexander? So, again, this question is from Indian English literature. You have to identify the, options, or identify the given options here, which works which are not written by Meena Alexander. So we have the first work, River and the Bride. River and the Bride, it is not written by Meena Alexander. It's actually written by Marisela Orta. And then we have Articulate Silence. Articulate Silence is also not written by Meena Alexander. It's written by a foreign author, that is King Kok Chuang. And then Rose Silk, it's written by Meena Alexander. Stone Roots, it's written by Meena Alexander. And A Time to Change. A Time to Change is a poetry collection by Nizam Ezekiel. So A, B and E. Since there is a mistake in the option, NTA has given two answers as two options as the correct answer. That is A and B only, and B and E only. So A, B and E. These are the poems not written by Meena Alexander. Moving to the next question, 55. Who among the following critics appropriates the following statement by Karl Marx? They cannot represent themselves, they must be represented. So here they cannot represent themselves, they must be represented. This question comes under literary theory, Marxism, and this is a statement made by Karl Marx on peasant consciousness. So the correct answer is option D, Chandra Talapade Mohanty. So he has written this in the essay Under Western Eyes. Okay, so he appropriates this statement by Karl Marx in his essay Under Western Eyes. So now let's look at the next question, that is question 56. What is the correct sequence of the following feminist text? What is the correct sequence of the following feminist text? So let's arrange them in the chronological order. So this actually comes under literary theory, feminism. All these are feminist literary theory works. So we have Sexual Politics, A World of Difference, The Female Imagination, Thinking About Women, A Room of One's Own. So the first published work here is, we have to say A Room of One's Own. That is the most important, that is the first work, A Room of One's Own, because it was first a speech by Virginia Woolf in 1928. Later it was made into a book in 1929. So the first one is option E. So E comes as two options, B and C. And the second one is Thinking About Women. It's actually a 1968 book by Mary Ellman, Thinking About Women. So with this we get the correct answer, that is E, D, A and A, C, B. So let's look at the options. A Room of One's Own, 1929. Thinking About Women, 1968 by Mary Ellman. Then we have Sexual Politics by Kate Millett in the year 1970. And then we have the Female Imagination by Spax by Patricia Spark, which was published in the year 1975. And finally, we have A World of Difference by Barbara Johnson in 1987. So the correct answer is E, D, A, C and B. So the question, it falls under literary theory, feminism. Now let's look at the next question. Given below are two statements. One is labeled as assertion A and the other is labeled as reason R. In the 19th century, Charlotte Perkins Gilman asserted economic independence over voting rights. The representation of women as power seekers was not socially acceptable in the 19th century America. So here we can find that this again comes under literary theory, feminism. So Charlotte Perkins Gilman, she was a feminist writer, and in her work Women and Economics, she has asserted that apart from voting rights, women need their economic independence, because only with economic independence that one can get power. Okay, so we have to say that both A and R are correct, and R is a correct explanation of A. Now let's look at the next question. Who among the following has authored the Revenger's Tragedy? Again, this is one tricky question because the Revenger's Tragedy, it was formerly attributed to Cyril Tourneur. Okay, so Cyril Tourneur, so it comes under British literature, Jacobean age. It was long attributed to Cyril Tourneur, but many critics claim that this actually belongs to Thomas Middleton. Since Thomas Middleton is not an option here, we can have the answer Cyril Tourneur. So this comes as a play of Jacobean age British literature. Cyril Tourneur, option A. Next question, Gautra Bahadur. Okay, Gautra Bahadur, once again another question from. So here you can find that many questions are from Indian English literature and or from post-colonial literature. Again, this comes under Indian English literature or post-colonial literature. Gautra Bahadur wrote an autobiographic novel, and the novel is titled as The Coolie Women. Okay, the novel is titled as Coolie Women. So this work, that is The Coolie Women, it is actually an autobiography of the author's grandmother, okay, or the author's great grandmother, that is Sujaria, and she was like a Brahmin caste woman from Bihar, which was India's poorest state at that time, and how she migrated to the British colony of Guyana or West Indies. So that is a story of The Coolie Women. So Gautra Bahadur, she has written the autobiographical novel titled The Coolie Women. Now let's look at the next question. Match list 1 with list 2. We have O. Henry, Rudyard Kipling, Oscar Wilde, Ralph Waldo Emerson. So here this is actually from the mixed genres, but we have poems. If you take the modules as such, these are all poems, and you have to match the following with the poets and the poems. So now let's look. So O. Henry has written the poem Hard to Forget. Rudyard Kipling is the author of The Lad Sute. Oscar Wilde has written At Verona. Ralph Waldo Emerson has written Beauty. So we have to say the correct answer is A4, B1, C3 and D2. A4, B1, C3 and D2. So that is about, so this actually comes under the module poems, but it's actually of a mixed, because Ralph Waldo Emerson, he belongs to American literature, and rest of the writers belongs to, Rudyard Kipling and Oscar Wilde, they belongs to British literature, and O. Henry again to European literature. Next question, which among the following is an incomplete poem? Which among the following is an incomplete poem by P.B. Shelley? The options are The Triumph of Life, Ode to the Western Wind, Queen Mab and the Demon of the World. So the correct answer is option A, The Triumph of Life. So this is the last major work by Percy Bysshe Shelley before his death in 1822 by drowning. We have also asked a question about the Triumph of Life earlier. So imagine, remember The Triumph of Life, it's an important work by P.B. Shelley, though it is incomplete. Now let's look at the next question. Match list 1 with list 2. Match list 1 with list 2. So here if you look at the list 2, you will get an idea that this comes from literary theory. This comes from literary theory. So list 1 is the number of prose works, and list 2 are the major theorists. So we have okay, so we have the Poetics of Prose. Poetics of Prose, it is written by Sweeten Todorov. Problems of Dostoevsky's Poetics, written by Michel Bakhtin? I think if you just know this answer, that is Problems of Dostoevsky's Poets by Michel Bakhtin, because it's actually a very direct question. Bakhtin has got a deep study of Dostoevsky's Poetics. So if you just know the answer, that is B3, then you can answer this question. So the correct answer is option C, A2, B3, C1 and D4. So A2, The Poetics of Prose by Todorov, Dostoevsky's Poetics by Michel Bakhtin, Surprised by Sin by Stanley Fish. That also is actually one of the most important reader response theory works. Then The Way Women Write, and that comes under that is written by Mary Hiard. So the correct answer is option C. Now let's look at the next question. Question number 63. Which of the correct combination of works by Doris Lessing and their respective themes? Which of these are correct combination of the works written by Doris Lessing and their respective themes? So Doris Lessing, we have to say that this comes under postmodernism, British literature, postmodernism. So let's look, and you have to identify the correct combination. Okay, so let's look Option A, that is The Golden Notebooks. It deals with Johor traveling to Rwanda. That is an incorrect statement. The Johor traveling to Rwanda, that is not the Golden Notebook, because the Golden Notebook, it tells a story of a writer named Anna and how she records her life in her book. Then Johor is actually, we have to say, a character in another work of Lessing, that is Shikasta. Okay, Johor is a character in Shikasta. Then we have The Good Terrorist. The Good Terrorist is about a doomed love affair. That is also an incorrect statement. Sorry, that is also an incorrect statement, because The Good Terrorist is about a doomed love affair. Okay, it's not about a doomed love affair. The protagonist of The Golden Terrorist, that is Alice, and how she squats with a group of radicals in London and how she is drawn to their terrorist activity. So that is the work, The Good Terrorist. It's not about a doom. So these two are not correct combinations. So Shikasta, it is about a planet which is cut off due to the advanced influence of civilization. C, D and E are correct. So we have to say that the correct answer is option C. C, D and E only. These are correct combination. A and B are incorrect. Okay, so the next question is question number 64, which is also regarded to be a drop question by NTA NET. So the questions or the works were regarding the works of Edward Braithwaite. So Edward Braithwaite, he is a Barbadian poet and he is regarded to be one of the major voices in Caribbean literary canon. So here in this question, you were asked to identify the works of Braithwaite and match according to the year of publication. But since there is a problem with the option, this question is regarded to be a drop question. So question 64, so the marks are given to all the options. Now let's look at the next question, question 65. Match list 1 with list 2. Again, this comes under different nationalities of novels and you have to identify the novelist. So again, this comes under fiction. So Malcolm Bradbury, David Lodge, Kingsley Amis and C.P. Snow. List 2 has Masters, Lucky Jim, The History Man and Changing Places. If you look at the options, we can say that Malcolm Bradbury, he is the author of The History Man. Then David Lodge, he is the author of Changing Places. Kingsley Amis is the author of Lucky Jim. C.P. Snow is the author of Masters. And even if you are not aware of other works, if you know that Lucky Jim is written by Kingsley Amis, you can answer this question. So the correct answer is option B, A3, B4, C2 and D1. So these questions might sound difficult, but these are all direct questions because with just one answer, you can get the right answer. Now let's look at the next question. Which among the following is appropriate about Ngugi wa Thiong'o's article Literature in Schools? Which among the following is appropriate about Ngugi wa Thiong'o's article Literature in Schools? Again, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, he's a Kenyan writer, so this comes under post-colonial novels. Okay, so it's post-colonialism, Kenyan writers, that is African literature, post-colonialism. So it comes again under fiction. Okay, so the you have to identify the appropriate statement. The article discusses the relevance and inadequacy of the present education system. That's a okay, so then it advocates teaching of European text and literature to the students of the third world countries. It reflects negatively on upon the literature taught to the Kenyan students in national school. It argues that cultural imperialism distorts people's vision of history. It observes that European teachers are better equipped to teach literature to Kenyan students. So the options are A, B, and C only, C, D, and T only, B, C, and D only, and A, C, and D only. So here we know that A is an appropriate statement, C is an appropriate statement, D is also an appropriate statement. So A, C, and D are the correct answer. That is option D. So that comes as option D. Now moving to the next question, which among the following are appropriate about Latin American literature? Again, post-colonialism. So this morning shift, it's entirely filled with Indian English literature or post-colonial literature. That's the most asked area here. So, which among the following are appropriate about Latin American statements? So, they have given 5 options where you have to identify the correct option. Okay, identify the most appropriate option. So there has been radical coherence and unity in literary representations of Latin America. That's an incorrect statement. The Latin American literary tradition draws analogy between plant growth and human environment. Pooth's stories depict the geography of Chilman-Balman towns. Quechua had a wider popularity and presence across different nations. The Latin American literature is unitary and refrains from intertextuality of any kind. So that is also an incorrect statement. So we can say that D is a correct statement. D is a correct statement. Then we have C, another correct statement, and B is also a correct statement. So B, C, and D are the correct statements. So that comes as option D. So option D, B, C, and D. So again, this comes under post-colonialism, Latin America. Next question, this is actually a question from figure of speech, which according to the syllabus is like an out of syllabus, because NTA has removed figures of speech or literary devices from the syllabus. But again, we can find the questions from that. Willing to wound and yet afraid to strike. Willing to wound and yet afraid to strike. That's actually a statement by Alexander Pope, which is an example of antithesis. It's an example of antithesis. Antithesis in the sense a contrast is sharply made and a sharply and clearly made. So here willing to wound yet afraid to strike. So it speaks about a contrast. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man. We know about this sentence. This is the first sentence of Pride and Prejudice, which is considered to be a perfect example of verbal irony. Then, thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time. Thou still unravished bride of quietness. So, this comes as assonance, a repetition that we can find in consonants or vowels. Okay, and eyes mast high, come floating as green as. So if there is as or like, then that is simile. Okay, so we know the correct answer. So for we can say is option B. That is A3, B1, C4 and D2. A3, B1, C4 and D2. Next is question 69. Which of these are not forms of flash fiction? Which of these are not forms of flash fiction? So question 69, it's also regarded to be a drop question, but because the thing is that here you can find that flash fiction means it's a genre of fiction defined as a very short story, much smaller than a short story. We can say typically less than 1000 or 1500 words. But here, since you have to identify the different forms of flash fiction, you can say that even a short story cannot have a direct difference between the flash fiction, because the number of words in a flash fiction is not given directly. So drabble belongs to a flash fiction. So there are multiple options. So with the confusion of these options, this question is regarded to be a dud, or this question is regarded to be a drop question. So anyone who has attempted this question would be given the marks. So the marks would be given to all the 4 options. So that is question 69. Now let's look at the next question, that is question number 70. Given below are two statements. One is labeled as assertion and the other is labeled as reason. The Marxist represents Marxism. Again, another question from literary theory, Marxism. So if you look at this, we can find that questions are being asked repeatedly from a single module. The Marxists represent Marxism as a scientific account of social change. The Marxist ideology believes that culture is a mirror of social life and the artist is an engineer of the human soul, educating the working class. So we have to say that both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation of A. So we have to say the correct answer to question number 70 is A. Next is question 71, which is again regarded to be a dud question or a drop question. So here the question is regarding the poet laureates of England. So as the option we have Alfred Austin. So Alfred Austin, he was the poet laureate from 1896 to 1913. He was followed by Robert Bridges. He was the poet laureate of 1913 to 1930. But we can find that Watts Dunton and Oscar Wilde, they never were the poet laureate. So here, since there is no option as A and B, the entire question is regarded to be a drop question. So that is question 71. So the next question number 72, match list 1 with list 2. Match list 1 with list 2. So we have To the Lighthouse, which was published in the year 1927. To the Lighthouse, 1927 by Virginia Woolf. Sons and Lovers, a D.S. Lawrence work, which was published in the year 1913. Finnegan's Wake, published in the year 1939. The Wasteland in the year 1922. So we have the option A2, B1, C3 and D4. So option D. So the correct answer to question 72 is option D. Moving to the next question, which of the following critics is associated with the term contrapuntal reading? So contrapuntal reading, the term is coined by Edward Said in his work Culture and Imperialism. So you have to remember that contrapuntal reading written by Edward Said in his essay Culture and Imperialism. Then moving to the next question, identify the correct pairs. The Boyfriend, Juliet Banerjee. Nude Therapy, Margaret Chatterjee. The Other Women and Other Stories, Deena Mehta. The Yankee and the Yogi, B.G. Siddharth. And Prejudice of Ages, Vera Sharma. So here, if you look at the correct pairs, we know The Boyfriend, it is written by Juliet Chatterjee. But Nude Therapy, it's not associated with Margaret Chatterjee. The Other Women and Other Stories, it's by Deena Mehta. Then we have The Yankee and the Yogi, that's also by B.J. Siddharth, but Prejudice and of Ages, it is not by Vera Sharma. So except B and E, A, C and D are the correct answers. So we have 74, A, C and D, that is option B. A, C and D, option B. Moving to the next question, who is the author of A Literature of Their Own? A Literature of Their Own is a Elaine Showalter work which was published in the year 1977. So it comes under literary theory, that is feminism. Literary theory under feminism. A Literature of Their Own, we have Elaine Showalter in the year 1977. Moving to the next question, given below are two statements. Statement 1, comparative literature is a study of different cultures, nations and genres, and it explores the inherent relationship between literature and other forms of cultural exploration. So we have to say that the statement is true. Okay, in the statement 2, in the study of literature and culture, the importance of methodology is secondary. So we cannot say that the statement is correct. So we have to say that statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. So that comes under the option C. Statement 1 is true, but statement 2 is false. Now let's look at another question number 76. Tolkappiyam is a book of grammar and poetics written in the language. Tolkappiyam is a book of grammar and poetics written in the language. So it comes under Indian English literature and that too under regional literature. Tolkappiyam, it's a book of grammar and poetics written in Tamil. Option B. Options are Telugu, Tamil, Kannada and Malayalam, and the correct answer is option B, Tamil. Moving on to the next question, that's a match the following question. Match list 1 with list 2. So in list 1, we have Donald Davy, Philip Larkin, Kingsley Amis and John Wayne. So this comes under British literature and that is postmodern age. British literature, postmodern age, and list 2 are the poems written by these postmodern. So if you look at modules, it comes under poetry. If you look under nationality, it comes under postmodern age British literature. So now let's look at the answer. We have Donald Davy. Okay, we have Donald Davy, who is the author of the poem The Shires. Then we have Philip Larkin, Against Romanticism. And then we have Kingsley Amis, which comes under, Kingsley Amis, who has written the work. Okay, once again, Donald Davy, he has written the poem The Shires. Philip Larkin has written the poem The North Ship. The North Ship. Kingsley Amis, Against Romanticism, and John Wayne, Hurry On Down. So if you look at the options, we have A 3, B 4, C 1 and D 2. That is option D. So the correct answer to this question is option D. So the correct answer to this question is option D. Now let's look at the next question. That is question number 79. Which of these graphic narratives depict political crisis? Which of these graphic narratives depict political crisis? So here again, this is from Indian English. Mostly the writers except Phoebe Glockner, they are from Indian English writers, and that comes to a minority of writing, that is graphic novelist. Okay, it's a small group of writings, graphic novelist. So we have which of these graphic narratives depict political crisis? That is a question. So the first one is Amrita Patil. So Amrita Patil, Amrita Patil, she is the author of the work Kari, and she is also one of the Indian graphic novel and the author. Then we have Kari. Kari, it does not depict political crisis. It's mostly about loneliness and about other stuffs. Then we have Joe Sacco. Joe Sacco, he's the footnotes in Gaza. That is also an example, depicts political crisis. Then we have Art Spiegelum of Maus. Then we have Sarnath Banerjee. Sarnath Banerjee, tells a story of Corridor. So Corridor, it actually tells the story of a tea dispenser named Jahangir and the different connections that he have. And then we have Phoebe Glockner's The Diary of a Teenage Girl. Diary of Phoebe Glockner's The Diary of a Teenage Girl. It's actually the coming of age story of a teenager called Minnie. So we can say that the question is which of these graphic narratives depict political crisis? So the answer is B and C. Option C, that is B and C only. Now moving on to the next question. Which among the following is true about the Tractarian movement? Which among the following is true regarding the Tractarian movement? So if you look into that question in detail, Tractarian movement is actually the name applied to the first stage of Oxford movement, and it was actually we can say it was derived from a series of tracts for the Times written between 1833 and 1841 by a group of Oxford high clergy churchmen. So let us have a look. It was a widespread across the world. It was widespread across the world. So we have to say that the question is which among the following statement is true. So A, it is an incorrect statement. The other leaders of the movement were Paul Newman and R.H. Fronde. Paul Newman and R.H. Fronde. So that's actually a correct statement. So statement B is correct. The movement began with a sermon by John Keble in 1833. That is also a correct statement. So B and C are correct statement. Buzet gave the movement cohesion, fame and name. That is also a correct statement. The ideal of the Christian church was praised by Oxford Convocation. So that is an incorrect statement. So the correct answer is option B, C and D. B, C and D comes as option D. So the correct answer is option D. Next question is question 81. This question is also regarded to be a drop question, and the question is regarding Women Beware Women. So we know that you have to, the book Women Beware Women was published in the year, and the options are 1612, 1620, 1621 and 1622. But Women Beware Women, we know it's a Jacobean tragedy written by Thomas Middleton, and it was first published in the year 1657. It was first published in the year 1657, and there were, the scholars, they have estimated its origin from 1612 to 1627, but still it was first published in the year 1657. So since it's not a given option, the question is considered to be a drop question. So now let's look at the next question, question number 82. Given below are two statements. One is labeled as assertion and the other is labeled as reason. So assertion, Jacques Lacan was radically critical of the Hesitium psychoanalytical theory. So here we know that Lacan, he belongs to psychoanalysis of literary theory, and again, so that's a correct statement. And then Lacan was expelled from the International Psychoanalytical Association in 1959. Though the reason is a correct statement, we cannot find that we cannot find any reasons in which it asserts or in which it gives a credibility to the assertion. So we have to say that both A and R are true, but R is not the correct explanation of A. That is option B. Both A and R are true, but R is not the correct explanation of A. So that is the correct option, option B. So 82B. That is the correct option. Now moving on to the next question. According to Roland Barthes, which of the following quotes are common to all narratives? So we all know, again, another question from Roland Barthes. So it comes under literary theory. So he has given 5 codes of semiotics. So 5 codes of semiotics. So which among this is not a code? So we know about the code. We have this hermeneutic code. We have pro-aeretic code. We have we have symbolic code, but there is nothing called the synthetic code. So synthetic code can also be parallel with cultural code. Okay, so it's hermeneutic code, pro-aeretic code, cultural code, symbolic code and semantic code. So the correct answer is option A, because it is according to Roland Barthes, which of the following codes are common to all narratives. So apart from A, we can find the correct answer is option D, B, C and D only. So B, proaeretic, semantic, hermeneutic and symbolic. So there is no code called synthetic code according to Roland Barthes. So the correct answer is option D, B, C, D and E only. Now let's look at the next question. Which of these statements are true in the context of neuro-linguistic programming? Which of the following statements are true in the context of neuro-linguistic programming? So this comes under language and pedagogy. Let's look at the answer. So here you have to identify the correct statement. Neuro in LLP meaning that our behavior is determined by our sensory experiences. So this is a correct statement. Then grammatical knowledge is a matter of practice. That is incorrect. NLP was developed by Richard Bandler and John Griller. That is also, neuro-linguistic program was developed by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. Neuro covers invisible thoughts and visible psychological reactions. That is also correct. So E, all of the above, no, because B is not a correct statement. So A, C and D. Let's look at the option A, C and D. It comes as option B. So the correct answer to question 84 is option B, A, C and D only. Now, the next question is from cultural studies. Stuart Hall belongs to dash schools of cultural studies. It's a direct question. Stuart Hall, he belongs to the Birmingham. Option C, Birmingham School of Cultural Studies. Option C. What does Aristotle mean by the phrase language with pleasurable accessories in his definition of tragedy? So, Aristotle and tragedy, obviously that comes under literary criticism and Greek critics. So question 86. So we have, what does Aristotle mean by the phrase language with pleasurable accessories in his definition of tragedy? So we have the options. Okay, so we have the options and let's look at the thing. A language full of pompous vocabulary, no. An embellished language, a language full of rhythm and harmony, a language super added with song, and finally emotive language. So we can say that the correct answer is option C and D only. That is a language full of rhythm and harmony, a language super added with song. So the rest of the things are not given is not meant by Aristotle in his definition of language with pleasurable accessories, in his definition of tragedy. Now let's move on to the next question. In which year Miles Coverdale translated the Old Testament of the... So this comes under non-fiction in British literature. So you have to identify the year in which Coverdale translated Old Testament of the Bible. So it is in the year 1835. So this comes under Age of Revival in British literature, or as per the new syllabus we can say that this comes under the Bible translation or non-fiction text of British literature. Next question. Given below are two statements. According to W.H. Auden, the importance of being earnest. So the importance of being earnest, it's actually a play written by Oscar Wilde, is the purest example in English literature of a verbal opera. It's a purest example written by, so it's a correct statement. Oscar Wilde possessed profound insight into the range of the arts that in a combined form and make theatre performance possible. So we can say that both statements are true. Both statement 1 and statement 2 are true. And since this is about W.H. Auden and Oscar Wilde, we can say that this comes under modern age. Now the next question. Anglo-Irish relations, question number 89. Anglo-Irish literature relations in the 20th century have been represented in which of the following novels? Anglo-Irish relations in the 20th century have been represented in which of the following novels? So in Elizabeth Bowen's The Last September, you can find this Anglo-Irish relationships. May Sinclair's The Divine Fire? No. Again, J.G. Farwell, Troubles. Again, you can find J.G. Farwell, The Sage of Krishnapur? No. Geoffrey Farnell's Black Barney's Treasure? No. So the correct answer is A and C. Correct answer is A and C. That comes as option B. Okay, so the correct answer to question 89 is option B. Now let's look at the next question, that is question 90. Which of the following are Plato's main objections against poetry? Since it's a question from Plato, we can say that it comes under literary criticism and that too under Greek critics. So you have to find the main objections against poetry. It's quite simple because again these works are the Plato's objections against poets you can find in the works of Sidney. The poet is an immature. The poet is an imitator. That is right because thrice removed from reality. Then the poet is incapable of bravery. No. The poet by fueling passions and emotions weakens the reasoning capacity of citizens. That's a correct statement. The poet is less responsible. No. The poet has no knowledge of the world. That is also a correct statement. So we can say that A, C and E. A, C and E, that is option A. A, C and E, that comes as option A. So here again, if you look at the questions, you can find that till now we discussed about the questions, and from question 91 to 100, it is read the passage in order to find the answer. So there are two passages. So we have from 91 to 95, this is the passage. It has been taken from the essay Toys by Roland Barthes. It's an expert from mythologies. So let's look at the first question. Which of the following is a correct interpretation? So if you look at the essay, you will get the answer. So I'm just giving you the answer so that you can go back and have a look on the paragraph. Which of the following is a correct interpretation? So the answer is, in touching the object, the child creates dynamic forms of life. In touching the object, the child creates dynamic forms of life. Let's look at the next question. The word demiurge connotes the word demiurge. The word demiurge. So this is actually a word here. I mean, this is actually a word in this particular passage. The actions he performs are not those of a user but those of a demiurge. So what do you mean by demiurge? Their creative abilities. It connotates the creative abilities of the children. So the next question is question number 93. The world of objects makes the child. The world of objects makes the child. So as per the latest answer key or the final answer key of NTA Net, you can find that there are two answers for this question. So the world of objects makes the child, actant and creator. Actant and creator. So if you have written either C or D, you would be getting the marks. So the world of objects makes the child, actant and creator. Option C and D. In the context of the above passage, which is the closest to being true? In the context of above passage, which is the closest to being true? Children actively learn while playing. Children are objects for toy makers. Toys affect the cognitive abilities of the children. So that can be considered to be the most accurate sentence regarding this. The adult causality is about. The adult causality is about option B, cognitive and logical structure of the world. Cognitive and logical structure of the world. So these are the questions that were asked from the extract from Toys of Roland Barthes. Now let's look at the next paragraph, next question. That is again another 5 questions are asked from a poem, and this poem is actually this poem is it's a poem written by Philip Larkin. The poem Mr. Bleaney by Philip Larkin. So now let's look at the question. The poem Mr. Bleaney is written in a dash form. We have to say it is written in a dramatic form. The poem Mr. Bleaney is written in a dramatic form. According to the speaker, Mr. Bleaney was, according to the speaker, the Mr. Bleaney was a sad and dull person. The poem Mr. Bleaney deals with the portrayal of his ordinariness. The poem Mr. Bleaney deals with the portrayal of his ordinariness. So next is question 99. You have to identify the answer as per, from the given poem. But again, you can find that this is a dropped question as per the latest NTA. In the third time, they refers to. So here, this they is not since clearly given. You have to say that this question is, this question is a dropped question. So that is 99. Then finally, the last question, Mr. Bleaney was the dash of the house. He was a tenant of the house. Mr. Bleaney, he was the tenant of the house. So these are our questions. So in this video, we discussed about the about the 100 questions that was asked for the morning shift. So far we discussed about the questions and answers of NTA Net English exam, that is December 2021 and June 2022 cycles merged exam. So if we speak about this exam, I have to say that there were direct questions asked directly from the common areas, and apart from that, there were questions asked from unfamiliar areas where you have to study much in detail in order to answer those questions. So if you are preparing for NTA Net exam or the upcoming NTA Net exam, then you have to make sure that if NTA is following the pattern of the examination that they conducted conducted this time, then you have to study in detail each and every chapter of the syllabus. And it might sound hectic, but that is the only way you can score good marks for these exams if they are continuing this format. For example, if you are taking drama, then you have to go through all the areas, all the marginalized, all the cornered areas, especially of the different nationalities. You have to focus more on different nationalities. Then also make sure you study all the patterns or all the forms in detail. If you are looking at the literary devices, then you have to go that in detail. Just a broad information or just a surface information won't do for examinations like this. So I hope you, for those who have written the examination, it ends well. And for all these students who are writing the upcoming examination, all the very best, and you have to study in detail regarding the pattern and also the syllabus. So that's all for this video. Thank you.